but then they changed their minds. Cutbacks, you know. They're still supposed to make it a refueling station for the Navy ships in summer, but nothing's happened yet." He laughed nervously. "Sorry, I reckon you already know all this." No, I want to hear it from your perspective. From what I understand, the Navy plans call for a glorified gas station. The Army was hatching plans of its own, of course, plans that would very likely come to nothing, just as the Navy's had. As the curving road came around a cliff, the sparkling bay appeared to the left and a signpost to the right. It was in English with Inuktitut symbols beneath. No liquor beyond this point without a permit. Jack sighed internally. He'd been traveling for 10 hours, and he'd really been looking forward to a cold beer. He thought of the folder of information on Arctic Bay and Nanisivik that Colonel Fournier had given him, which surely mentioned it was a dry town. He'd procrastinated all week and promised himself he'd read the briefing on the plane, but he'd slept instead. Considering he'd had a 4-hour layover in Iqaluit after the early flight from Ottawa, he'd had no excuse, particularly since he'd spent the time playing a stupidly addictive fishing game on his tablet. But it was fine. He'd get up to speed tonight in his hotel room. It wasn't as though there would be anything else to do. "How many people live here?" he asked, since he should try to make conversation. 823, last they counted, but I reckon the number's gone up a bit. I know it has by at least one since my third son was born." Jack smiled on cue. "Congratulations. What's his name?" "Ipiktok. It means sharp. Smart, I mean. Brainy." "That's a good name. My wife wanted to go traditional. A lot of babies have old names these days. And Arctic Bay is Ipiaryuk. It means the pocket. You'll see there are cliffs on 3 sides. Beneath the wind-swept patches of snow, the barren red rock landscape was hilly and dominated by flat-topped cliffs. Jack couldn't see any vegetation or even topsoil. Might as well be the fucking moon. As the town itself appeared, things didn't improve much. Arctic Bay was a collection of mostly single-story prefabricated houses, many painted light blue or dark red. He guessed there were about 100 small buildings clustered together by the shore. Walking from one end of the town to the other couldn't take more than 10 minutes. "So, this is it," Onatok said as they drove down toward the water. He glanced over expectantly. "Looks great," Jack lied. "I'll take you to the hotel, and Sergeant Carsen will be along soon." Jack smiled and nodded as he took in his home for the next 5 days. This whole trip was a waste of time, but at least it got him out from behind a desk pushing pointless paper. He told himself it would be a welcome break, although it wasn't as if Colonel Fournier had given him a choice. He could still hear Etienne's disappointed sigh, his mouth turned down as he clasped his hands together on his desk. "Something needs to give, Jack. I know it's hard to transition, but you seem distracted here. I think it'll do you good to get back in the field." "Going on a tour with Arctic reservists isn't getting back in the field. They aren't even real army." "They're all we've got up there, and they know that land. You just might learn something. We're getting out of the Middle East. Time to focus closer to home." But what was the point? If the Russians wanted to invade the Arctic, a few weekend warriors couldn't stop them. Even with the waning sunlight glittering prettily on the partly frozen bay, this place was a wasteland, and a fucking freezing one at that. Ottawa was bad enough, and Jack could only shudder to think what it would be like here on the north end of Baffin Island in the winter. On the upside, at least there was no goddamn sand. The Sukanook Hotel was a wide brown prefab rectangle that couldn't house more than 10 tiny rooms. He'd seen fancier mud huts in Afghanistan, but as long as it was clean, he didn't care. As Jack climbed out of the truck, he peered at the small posts that lifted the structure a few feet off the ground. He noticed all the buildings were similarly hoisted. Why is everything lifted? It was so dry in the high Arctic it couldn't be to prevent flooding. "Permafrost," Onatok answered as he scooped up Jack's duffel from the back of the pickup. "If buildings sit right on the ground, the heat from inside will melt the top layer. They'll sink." "Ah, no basements in Nunavut, I guess." Jack reached for his bag and extended his hand. "Thanks again." "My pleasure, Captain." Onatok shook his hand and nodded. "There's Susan. She'll take good care of you." A middle-aged woman appeared from the door of the hotel. "This must be Captain Turner. Tunga Sugitsi. Welcome."